Celeste Rosewood had inherited more than just recipes from her Italian grandmother. She had inherited a passion for cooking that ran through her blood like fire. At 26, she had turned her grandmother's small neighborhood restaurant, Nana's Kitchen, into the most sought-after dining destination in the city. But her two male business partners were about to teach her a brutal lesson about trust. "Celeste, we need to talk," Marcus Sterling announced as he walked into the kitchen, where she was preparing her famous truffle risotto. "Vincent and I have been discussing the future of the restaurant, and we think it's time for some changes." Marcus was a smooth-talking businessman who had invested money in the restaurant when Celeste was struggling to pay rent. He had no culinary skills but claimed he understood the business side better than she did. "What kind of changes?" Celeste asked, not looking up from her perfectly crafted dish. "Well," Vincent Romano chimed in, adjusting his expensive suit. "We've been thinking that maybe you should focus more on the kitchen and let us handle the business decisions. You're a great cook, but running a restaurant requires skills you just don't have." Vincent was Marcus's childhood friend, a failed lawyer who had bought his way into the partnership and spent most of his time schmoozing with customers while taking credit for Celeste's creations. What Celeste didn't know was that Marcus and Vincent had been secretly meeting with franchise consultants, planning to steal her recipes and expand nationwide without her involvement. They had been photographing her cooking processes, copying her ingredient lists, and even bribing her sous chef to reveal her preparation techniques. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," Celeste said calmly. "This is my restaurant. These are my recipes. My grandmother's recipes. You two are investors, not owners." Marcus laughed condescendingly. "Actually, Celeste, if you read the partnership agreement you signed, you'll see that we have majority control. You own 30% of the business, but we own 70% combined. We can outvote you on any decision." The betrayal hit Celeste like a physical blow. She had been so focused on cooking and creating that she had trusted these men with the legal details of her business. Now she was learning that they had structured the deal to eventually push her out. "You can't do this," Celeste whispered, her voice shaking with rage. "These recipes have been in my family for generations. They're not just business assets, they're my heritage." "Business is business," Vincent said with a shrug. "Your grandmother's recipes are now company property. We'll make sure you get your 30% cut of the profits, minus expenses, of course." What Marcus and Vincent didn't realize was that Celeste had been holding back her most powerful recipes. The dishes that had made the restaurant famous were just the beginning. She possessed cooking secrets that could revolutionize the entire food industry. Her grandmother hadn't just been a cook, she had been a culinary genius who had developed preservation techniques, flavor combinations, and cooking methods that were decades ahead of their time. The recipes they had stolen were nothing compared to what Celeste kept locked in her mind and hidden in her grandmother's encrypted journals. That night, Celeste made a decision that would change everything. Instead of fighting them in court or accepting their betrayal, she would build something so magnificent that their stolen restaurant would become irrelevant. She started by reaching out to her network of culinary contacts. During her years of perfecting her craft, Celeste had built relationships with celebrity chefs, food critics, and restaurant owners around the world. These connections would become the foundation of her empire. "Celeste, I've been following your work for years," Chef Antoine Dubois wrote in response to her message. "If you're serious about starting your own venture, I'd love to invest. Your grandmother's techniques are legendary among those of us who understand real cooking." Chef Dubois was a Michelin-starred chef who owned restaurants in Paris, London, and New York. His endorsement opened doors that Marcus and Vincent could never have imagined. Within weeks, Celeste had secured backing from an international consortium of celebrity chefs and food industry moguls. Her concept was revolutionary: Nana's Legacy, a chain of restaurants that would showcase authentic, traditional cooking methods combined with modern presentation and technology. But Celeste's real innovation was her secret weapon: the preservation and flavor enhancement. techniques her grandmother had developed. These methods could make food taste fresher, last longer, and provide better nutrition than anything currently available in the market. This is incredible, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a food scientist, said after analyzing Celeste's techniques. Your grandmother's methods are scientifically sound and commercially viable. We could revolutionize the entire food industry. While Marcus and Vincent were struggling to replicate her dishes without her expertise, Celeste was developing a global brand that would redefine fine dining. Her first, Nana's Legacy restaurant opened in Los Angeles with a star-studded launch party attended by celebrities, food critics, and industry leaders. Revolutionary chef launches restaurant empire with ancient family secrets, read the headline in Food and Wine magazine, featuring Celeste on the cover in her signature chef's coat. The reviews were unanimous. Celeste's food was unlike anything anyone had ever tasted. Her dishes had flavors that seemed impossible, textures that defied explanation, and presentation that was pure artistry. But the most devastating blow to Marcus and Vincent came when Celeste revealed that she had been recording their conversations for months. She had evidence of their plan to steal her recipes, their intention to push her out, and their attempts to bribe her staff. Celeste Rosewood exposes restaurant partner fraud, read the headline in the business section of the New York Times. The article detailed how Marcus and Vincent had systematically stolen her intellectual property and planned to defraud her out of her own business. The legal consequences were swift and brutal. Marcus and Vincent were sued for theft of intellectual property, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. The restaurant they had stolen was shut down pending legal proceedings, and both men faced criminal charges. But Celeste's revenge was more satisfying than any legal victory. Within 2 years, Nana's Legacy had expanded to 50 locations across 3 continents. Her cookbook became a New York Times bestseller, and her cooking show was the most watched culinary program in television history. From Betrayal to Empire: How One Woman Built a Global Food Dynasty, read the cover story in Business Week, featuring Celeste as she stood in her flagship restaurant in Manhattan. The ultimate revenge came when Celeste's company went public, making her worth over $500 million. She had become the youngest female billionaire in the food industry, and her empire continued to grow exponentially. Marcus and Vincent, meanwhile, were working minimum wage jobs at fast food restaurants, having been banned from the culinary industry and facing bankruptcy from the legal judgments against them. I heard Marcus is working at a burger joint now, her former sous chef mentioned during a visit to Celeste's corporate headquarters. Vincent is washing dishes at a diner across town. Celeste's response was gracious but firm. I don't take pleasure in their suffering, but I'm glad. They can't hurt anyone else the way they hurt me. Sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming so successful that your enemies become irrelevant. But Celeste's greatest achievement wasn't her wealth. It was the impact she had on the culinary world. Her restaurants employed over 10,000 people. Her techniques were being taught in culinary schools worldwide, and her foundation provided scholarships and training for aspiring chefs from disadvantaged backgrounds. The best dishes come from the heart, Celeste said during her TED talk that received over 8 million views. When someone tries to steal your passion, don't let them take your fire. Use that fire to build something they could never imagine. The most satisfying moment came when Celeste opened her flagship restaurant in the exact location where her grandmother's original restaurant had been. The building had been transformed into a culinary palace, but the heart of the operation remained the same: authentic, passionate cooking that honored her family's legacy. My grandmother always told me that the secret ingredient in every dish is love, Celeste said. During the restaurant's grand opening, Marcus and Vincent stole my recipes, but they could never steal that secret ingredient. That's why they failed, and that's why I succeeded. Years later, when culinary students studied the history of modern cuisine, they would learn about the Rosewood Revolution, How one woman's refusal to accept betrayal had transformed the entire food industry and created a new standard for authentic cooking. They thought they could steal my heritage and leave me with nothing, Celeste would tell her students at the Celeste Rosewood Culinary Institute. Instead, they motivated me to share that heritage with the world. Sometimes the greatest recipe for success is adding equal parts passion, determination, and the refusal to be defeated. Marcus and Vincent had thought they were dealing with a naive female chef who would quietly accept their betrayal. Instead, they had created their own worst nightmare. A culinary genius with unlimited resources, global connections, and the power to redefine an entire industry. The woman who had once been pushed out of her own kitchen now owned the most prestigious restaurant empire in the world. The chef who had been told she didn't understand business had become the most successful entrepreneur in the food industry. Celeste Rosewood had proven that sometimes the most delicious revenge is simply becoming so successful that your enemies are left with nothing but the bitter taste of their own greed.